having deja vu right now. And it's just like, girl, wow. Wow. Did I already talk about this one in the video? Whoopsie daisy. Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Joshana here to talk about some friggin' books. And I want to apologize in advance if my audio sounds not so great today. I got a new phone, which is lovely, but it's the iPhone 15 that has the USB-C, and I forgot that I needed an adapter for my mic that'll fit into this phone, because I just have the one for the lightning port thing from the iPhone 13. But I want to try to get this video recorded and edited by Thursday and up by Thursday. And tomorrow I won't really have time. Today's Monday. I got all ready. So we're just going to do this and hope that I can mess with the audio in editing enough to make it bearable. But if it's a little unbearable, I'm sorry. Skip this video. This is just going to be the rest of the books I read in February. February was a pretty good reading month as far as the amount of books I read. So far, March has not been that great. It's the 18th and I have completed 2 books, and I think one of them I started in the end of February. The other one I started in the beginning of March. It's going slow. My mom was visiting for a little over a week, so I definitely wasn't reading as much then. The first one I'll talk about today was an ebook that I had, and that is Diabolical Sword by Melissa Erin Jackson. I cannot for the life of me remember who I saw talking about this. Did I already talk about this one in the video? Am I crazy? I'm having deja vu right now. And I swear I've had this dialogue on a video before. I don't know. At any rate, this one is contemporary fantasy, urban fantasy, whatever you want to call it. It's our world, but where magic and magical beings do exist, though they remain hidden in magic hub cities around the world, veiled from human eyes. Harlow is a bounty hunter who comes across an incredibly rare and forbidden sword and ends up on the run. Plots and mysteries and magical fights ensue. So for rereadability, this is one that I don't think I would ever reread. I enjoyed the characters a fair amount. I don't think I enjoyed anything about it enough to feel a real deep desire to reread in the future. You know, it was serviceable in what it was and what it was doing, but nothing that I really fell head over heels for. This is one where I might continue the series. I think it might just be a duology. So definitely if I can confirm that it is for sure a duology and that's that, I could see myself picking the next one up. If it's a continuing series, trilogy or more, maybe I'll pick up the next one. It's not one that I'm really itching to continue, but I'm not writing it off either. I ended up giving this one 3.25 stars. So it was cool. Not a new fave or anything. And then next I went through another Series of Unfortunate Events installment. I read these when I was younger, when they were coming out. As the series went on, this was not childhood, elementary school or anything. I think the first one came out when I was in middle school. Yeah, this one was 2004, which is when I graduated from high school. So yeah, I was not a small child reading these. I was for sure in 7th grade, I want to say, when the first one came out, maybe 6th grade. At any rate, so I have read this before. I'm just very slowly over the last couple of years, I've been rereading them. And this one I listened to on audio for the most part. And I have to say, I did not love the audiobook, and I didn't really love this one. I love the authorial voice. That is the thing that I love these books, the authorial voice. It's so just witty and clever. These books are very much formulaic, though. You're following these 3 children who become orphaned at the beginning of the series. And then there is the dastardly villain Count Olaf, who is trying to get their fortune. And many, many hijinks and shenanigans and just ridiculous situations ensue. But at the heart of it is this very sweet, familial, sibling bonding and just relationship with these three siblings, always looking out for each other. It's very, very cute. But this one in particular, oh my gosh, the one guy, the captain, what was his friggin' name? At any rate, the captain, he says I at the end of every sentence. Like, where, God, I can't, where's some, he just says I all the time, after like almost every sentence. I, blah, 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 I haven't forgotten you, I, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like I don't really remember it being annoying reading it. I might have noticed it reading it, but listening to the audio. I almost stopped listening to the audio, but I was reading a few other things at the same time, and I was just trying to get through some stuff. And so I was like, nope, I'm just going to stick to the audio so I can listen to it like in the car and whatever. And yeah, it drove me nuts though, this guy. And then he disappeared for a little while, so it wasn't the worst thing, but yeah, he just was driving me nuts on audio. It's like, shut up with this freaking eye crap. But I mean, again, I enjoy the story, the characters, the authorial voice. I ended up giving this one 3.25 though. I definitely gave the earlier books in the series like higher ratings. Oh no, I think I gave this 3.5. Yes. I did give this 3.5. My apologies. So there's that, another one down. There's only like 2 left. Next was a library book I picked up, Lone Women by Victor Lavelle. And I've never read any Victor Lavelle, and I don't really know what it was that prompted me. I just was at the library kind of browsing around, I think, and I just said, hey, let's try this. It's not super long either. I was looking for something that wasn't crazy long. And this is categorized as, I mean, it's historical and horror, historical Western horror. Adelaide is traveling out to Montana after a life-altering event happens, resulting in the death of her parents back in her hometown in California, leaving her alone to carry the family burden with her now. She tries to survive while keeping this huge secret, but things don't necessarily go as planned, and others end up getting hurt. She learns whether or not the community members around her will help her, or if they will be her undoing. So, rereadability for this one. I was a little bit surprised. Horror is always like, I don't know, how horrific is it going to be? And I'm not like the biggest baby, but I can be also. And I don't know, horror just isn't a genre that I gravitate to, right? So it's always like, am I gonna like really like it? I did really enjoy this. I don't know that I would ever want to reread it necessarily. Just like thinking about it, I can't really see myself having the desire to reread, but not because I didn't enjoy it. Just there's certain genres I feel like that just, like mysteries too, even mysteries I really like. It's very rare that I ever think I'll reread, other than like the Lady Hardcastle cozy historical. And that's mostly just because the writing, the authorial voice, the dialogue between the characters, it's just like characters I just want to hang out with, you know? I could definitely see myself rereading those. But otherwise, like most mysteries, I never envision myself rereading. And thus far, the horror that I have read that I have enjoyed, I felt similarly where I'm like, I liked it. I don't know if I'll ever reread it though. And that is the case here. The characters though, I did really, really enjoy the characters. Sometimes I felt like there wasn't as much development with the characters as I maybe would have liked. Like we just didn't get like into the meat of things quite enough, I guess. Like we kind of did. We were dipping our toes in and maybe our whole foot in here and there, but I kind of wanted to dive in a few more times. But with Adelaide and some of the more important side characters, I felt like there was enough. There were just quite a few side characters, I guess, that like I wish we would have gotten a little bit more from. I just didn't feel any particular strong connection to any of the characters, though. The plot overall I quite enjoyed as well. I thought the pacing was pretty good, other than towards the end there were a few times where, and I mean, you know, we're picking up the pace, of course, but there were a few times where it felt like we were skipping too much, like skipping forward too much, and it just felt a little bit weird. Overall, though, I did like the mystery. It kept my interest throughout. The horror elements definitely were not, like, too scary at all for me, and I enjoyed how everything ended up. That's what, like, sometimes, like, people talk about horror, and, like, I don't know, I guess I'm expecting something different, and maybe that's why I don't gravitate toward it, because I'm expecting, like, horror, you know? This, to me, feels like light horror, I guess. I don't know. If you're a horror reader and you've read this, let me know if I mean, I guess it's probably subjective to everyone, I suppose, but I liked it. Themes and kind of discussions that we were having here, definitely racism. I mean, she's a Black woman that goes out to the boondocks in Montana and is, as you can imagine, mostly surrounded by a bunch of white people. Not only white people, but mostly white people. Not only white people, because there is an Asian woman, and there is definitely some xenophobia as well that kind of happens on page a little bit. There's definitely themes of women looking out for each other, you know, like building a community of women and caring for each other, and overall just the burdens people carry too, not just women, women for sure, but like just in general, any person, the burdens we carry, and changing our perception of horrific truths. And then loneliness. Definitely warnings, I would say, for some racism and some xenophobia. Also gore, blood, kind of savage attacks on people's bodies from animals, animalistic, savage attacks, I guess I would say, yeah. Yeah, I very much enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars. So that's pretty dang high for me, especially going outside of the fantasy genre. But would recommend. Don't think I'll buy myself a copy because, like I said, I don't think I'll reread it, but definitely would recommend. Next is another NetGalley e-arc DNF. Whoopsie daisy. And this one, man, okay. The book in question is Cascade Failure by L.M. Sagas. And this cover is so fun. And this is one that I do think a lot of people will really like. I think a lot of people will really, really like. If you liked A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, is that what it's called, by Becky Chambers, I would say check this one out for sure. It was a weird experience though, because partially I was really enjoying it, but then partially I was slogging through it. I DNF'd it at 43%, and it had taken me a couple of weeks to get to that point. And there were elements that were working for me quite a bit, but then the execution was kind of ruining those elements for me a little bit. I really liked like the framework of everything, the characters in particular. It's sci-fi, out in space, and we kind of have like a ragtag crew on a ship, and like someone that's trying to be like a stowaway, and just kind of missions and adventures ensue. But I felt like there was a little bit too much exposition for me happening from one of the characters who was an AI. The captain of the ship is an AI. And for me personally, like I said, I was just kind of slogging through it, even though I was like, I like these characters. I like what we're doing here. I like where we're going, I think, but it was just taking me forever. And it could have just been, again, the time, being a little stressed, having too much brain fog going on, and like space opera type stuff, or maybe not space opera, but just sci-fi, out in space, spaceship stuff. You guys know that is sometimes rough for me anyway, where my brain is just like, does not compute. Top with being stressed at the time, that's probably what it was. Every time I picked it up to read, I just kind of felt like I was walking through molasses a little bit, despite generally liking the premise and the characters. But again, I think there is a very large audience for this book, probably. I mean, I didn't finish it, so I don't know where the plot goes and everything, but again, if you like sci-fi, if you like ragtag crew, found family vibes, definitely check this one out. I think it's out now. Let me double check. Yeah. Oh, nope. As of tomorrow, March 19th. So, hey, it's out now once this video goes up, either Thursday or Sunday. So check it out. The next one I read is another ebook copy I had of Diary of a Romantica 2, Lovers Remembered by Celia Martinez. This is poetry. I really liked the first one. I follow her on Instagram, and I just love her like spoken word poetry that she does. It's just her reciting these poems, performing them, and it's so mesmerizing. And I'm not some poetry aficionado. I used to really kind of be into poetry in like middle school, high school, a little bit in college. And I don't know, I've written it before too, and like got an award in college for one, but it's not something I have paid any attention to in the last like 20 years. And even back then, I don't know that I would ever say anything with any kind of confidence on whether or not it's good or not, right? It's so subjective. I think poetry, especially, any writing is very subjective, despite what some people may think and act like they're the authority on things. But I feel like poetry especially is super subjective with what's going to resonate with someone or not. And her, just, it's like such hopeful or hopeless, like romantic, just such like dreamy, romantic, angsty. And I just love it. I just love it. It's just pleasant. So I quite enjoyed this. It's, again, I don't know that it is, I guess, a little bit samey as far as like the themes. The themes are pretty much the same throughout. So like reading them all back to back, I think is not a good idea. You need to like space it out a little bit. I ended up giving this 3.75 stars. Really enjoyed it. You know, not like the most groundbreaking, I guess, maybe, but I really, really like it. So, and then another NetGalley e-arc, but one that I finished. Yay, love that for me. And that is The Wings Upon Her Back by Samantha Mills. This one is a standalone, and the summary is: a loyal warrior in a crisis of faith must fight to regain her place and begin her life again while questioning the events of her past. This gripping science fantasy novel from a Nebula and Locus Award-winning debut author is a complex, action-packed exploration of the costs of zealous faith, brutal war, and unquestioning loyalty. So, rereadability. As per usual, I really liked this quite a bit, but I don't know that I would ever reread it. I don't know. It's one that I liked a lot of elements about it, but I feel like for me to like really want to reread books, there has to be something about the authorial voice or the writing style that I just want to eat up, and that's not the case here. So I wasn't necessarily super gripped by it, despite really liking it, so I don't know that I would ever reread it. And this is one I have like heard nobody talk about. And when does this one come out? Let me double check. April 23rd. This one comes out April 23rd. But yeah, I've hardly heard anybody say anything about it. I just randomly saw it on NetGalley, checked it out, and was like, that sounds kind of cool. I thought that Xenia, the main character, was a very, very fascinating character with her brain's like absolutely stubborn ability to put blame anywhere but the place that would implicate her and make her feel guilty. Without like spoiling anything, there's just things that happen. We have these different factions in this city, and it's a very kind of insular like world we have here. We're just in this city. We hear about like other places, but in this city in particular, they had at one point in their history a direct line to their gods. There are 4 gods. God, now I'm forgetting. But yeah, pretty sure there were 4 gods. 4 or 5. Yeah, maybe 5. I don't know. At any rate, different gods with like different sects that follow them. So there's the Mecha god that is like the machinery and kind of those types of advancements, technology advancements. Then there's like the scholar god, the creator god, who's all about like the farming and stuff. So there's a god for each kind of like facet of their society, and they've become very like sectioned off. And Xenia, our main character, is part of the Mecha sect. She's born into the scholar sect, but then goes over to the Mecha sect. And not that many people do that. It's kind of just like you do what your parents did. You're part of the group that you're born into. And for the most part, people don't go outside of it. Some do, but it's pretty rare and uncommon. And the Mecha sect has basically become like the rulers of the city. Like they are judge, jury, and executioner, essentially. And Xenia she blames the scholar sect, without spoiling anything, for daring to question authority and the oppression that they're seeing, and influencing people to fight against the Mecha sect. And then because they are the Mecha sect and they have way more technology and weapons and stuff, like it doesn't end well for people who kind of rebel against them. And instead of being mad at her own sect for responding this way to being questioned, she's just like, everybody shut up and stop questioning us. Like, just stop it. What are you doing? This is so dumb. And like, I'm mad at the scholar sect for putting these ideas into people's heads. You're causing the problem. And it's just like, girl, wow. Wow. The mental gymnastics we are doing here. It was just really, really interesting though, and like fascinating being in her head and watching her just go do these mental gymnastics. It was really, really fascinating. I thought it was really well done. The effects of being completely brainwashed and obviously manipulated and also emotionally and mentally abused by a cult-like leader were very, very apparent. And of course, it can be frustrating to see, like, you're reading this book and see this character, like, making these choices, and you're like, what the fuck? But again, I just thought it was done in a way that really highlighted the abuse of it all, and it really worked for me. And I saw, like, some kind of familiarities. I've never been in, like, a cult-like situation, but I've been in a relationship that was emotionally and mentally abusive. And so there's definitely, like, correlations to be made there. So I think that it's definitely something that a lot of people with similar but not the exact same experience, I think someone who, you know, grew up in a really strict fundamentalist type of religion could probably relate. Someone who's maybe broken away from that could kind of relate, or straight up cult, right? Could. Or just parental relationships that are toxic or emotionally or mentally abusive, or all of that. Friendships that are like that. Certainly romantic relationships that are like that. I think it was done in a way that, like, any of these people with these experiences could see something familiar and be like, oh, yes. And again, everyone has their own different experiences and perceptions, but I thought it was done really well. For the plot, there were moments where, like, some of the action didn't necessarily work for me super well. And some of the pacing, I think that was probably the biggest drawback for me. There were a few points that kind of dragged a little bit for me, where the pacing I didn't think, like, was what it should have been or what I would have liked, I guess. But I was definitely still fascinated with the world and just waiting to find out more about these gods and to find out the truth about the gods, hopefully. And also just fascinated with Xenia's internal struggles and her character growth and development. So I never felt like DNFing or anything like that, but there were definitely some pacing qualms I had. Again, the themes, like I was saying, mental and emotional abuse for sure. Idolization of leaders and religion. Differences in how individuals interpret the same religion, right? Like, growing up in the same religion and having completely different interpretation of what the teachings are from someone else who also grew up in the same religion, right? And how religion can definitely be used by those in power to keep a population in control. It is one of the best ways of doing that, if history can teach us anything. And just kind of a general question of what any deity would be and how they would feel about us if they are indeed real. Like, what are they actually? And if they're real, like, how do they feel about us as their little subjects? There was a lot of kind of questions of that happening throughout the story. And just an overall messaging and theme of, like, power and control and how people get it and try to keep it and what people will do, the lengths people will go to. So I really liked it. Definitely give it a shot if any of that sounds interesting to you. I ended up giving this 4 stars, which is pretty high praise for me, especially considering that, like I said, there were points where it did kind of slog a little bit for me personally, where the pacing was like, eh. And I will say, to the end, and I don't remember if it was actually, like, the final chapter or if it was the epilogue, but the last little bit, I also did feel like needed to be cut down a fair amount. It dragged on a little bit. And throughout the book too, we are, like, in the past with Xenia and then in the present with Xenia. So you're getting, like, her story, but in 2 different timelines. So there is that. Also, I know some people hate that. I don't mind it. And I thought it worked really well here too. The way that it was like mirroring stuff that was going on now with like what had happened in the past. And I quite enjoyed that. So yeah, definitely would recommend. There we go. Those are the rest of them for February. So hopefully I'll be able to finish a few more books soon and have a couple more to talk about in the near future. Because yeah, right now I've only finished 2 in March. My God, both were good though. One was a reread and I love it. If you've read any of these, definitely let me know what your thoughts were on them, or if any of them do sound intriguing and you think you might pick them up now, definitely let me know. Or leave a little emoji if you just want to say hello and let me know that you're watching. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.